For centuries, one of humanity's biggest questions has been, do we live more than once? Ancient cultures across the world, from Egypt to India, from Greece to the Druids of Europe, all carried one central truth. The soul does not die. It returns again and again, learning, evolving, remembering. But somewhere along the way, this truth was buried, silenced, and erased from the holy texts millions rely on today. Did you know that early Christian communities believed in reincarnation for nearly 300 years after Christ's death? Even church fathers like Origen wrote extensively about the soul's journey beyond one lifetime. Yet centuries later, powerful councils decided this teaching was too dangerous, too liberating, and they struck it out. What were they hiding? Why would knowledge of your eternal soul threaten the foundation of religion as we know it? Tonight, we peel back the veil of history, revealing what the early church knew, what it feared, and why reincarnation was erased from the Bible you've been told to trust. To understand why reincarnation vanished from mainstream Christianity, we need to travel back to the early centuries of the faith. In the first 300 years after Christ, many spiritual communities followed teachings that were closer to ancient mystery schools than to modern dogma. They believed the soul's purpose was evolution through multiple lifetimes, each existence offering lessons the spirit needed to ascend. But as Christianity spread across empires, powerful leaders saw a problem. A soul that reincarnates cannot be controlled by fear of eternal damnation. If life is not a single one-shot test, but a vast journey of growth, the Church loses its power to dictate salvation. Historical records show that councils like the Fifth Ecumenical Council in 553 AD labeled reincarnation heresy, not because it lacked truth, but because it threatened the authority of those rewriting spiritual law. Knowledge was replaced with obedience, and the eternal journey of the soul was hidden behind a wall of silence. As the Church tightened its grip on spiritual teachings, certain texts and ideas slowly disappeared from the canon. Early Christian sects, including the Gnostics and the followers of Origen, openly spoke of the soul's journey through many lifetimes. Origen himself, one of the most influential early theologians, taught that the soul existed before birth and returned again after death to continue its evolution. Yet centuries later, many of his works were censored or destroyed. Even references in Scripture that hinted at reincarnation, such as Jesus saying John the Baptist was Elijah returned, were reinterpreted or stripped of their meaning. Hidden manuscripts discovered in Nag Hammadi and the Dead Sea Scrolls reveal fragments of these suppressed teachings, showing a version of Christianity that embraced spiritual rebirth beyond one life. This isn't speculation, it's historical erasure. What was once a vast map of the soul's eternal journey was narrowed down to a single, fear-based doctrine: obey now or face eternal punishment. The question is, who benefited from hiding this truth, and why did they want humanity to forget its infinite nature? If this truth about reincarnation made you question everything you've been taught about life and death, subscribe now, because the hidden story of your soul is far from over. Once the doctrine of one life and one judgment took hold, the entire structure of religious authority shifted. Reincarnation empowers individuals. It gives them endless chances to learn, grow, and align with divine truth. But remove that, and suddenly, salvation becomes a scarce commodity controlled by the Church. The idea of eternal damnation was introduced and amplified to replace the natural cycle of spiritual rebirth. Fear became the greatest tool of control. If people believed they had just one chance, one lifetime to earn their place in heaven, they were more likely to obey blindly, pay indulgences, and accept the authority of religious leaders without question. Historical councils, such as the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 AD, condemned the teachings of pre-existence and rebirth as heresy. This wasn't divine revelation. It was politics cloaked in spirituality. By narrowing the soul's journey into a one-way path ending in eternal reward or punishment, the powerful could dictate morality, control kingdoms, and even wage wars in the name of saving souls. The truth about reincarnation wasn't lost. It was buried under centuries of fear-driven dogma. Despite centuries of suppression, traces of reincarnation never fully disappeared from spiritual texts. Early Christian writings, some that were later excluded from the biblical canon, spoke of the soul's journey through multiple lifetimes, refining itself toward divine union. Even in the existing Bible, hints remain. Jesus refers to John the Baptist as Elijah returned, and questions about a man born blind because of sins before birth suggest an understanding of pre-existence. The Gnostic Gospels, banned and hidden for centuries, describe the soul descending repeatedly into physical form, learning through experience. In Eastern Christianity, early church fathers like Origen openly taught about the soul's pre-birth existence until those teachings were condemned for threatening hierarchical power. These remnants are like cracks in a wall, revealing what was once common knowledge. Life and death are part of a larger cycle, not a one-time test. The idea of reincarnation persisted underground, surviving in mystical sects, esoteric teachings, and the wisdom of indigenous cultures. Its suppression was never about truth, it was about control. And as humanity awakens spiritually today, these forgotten truths are resurfacing, demanding to be seen again. The decision to erase reincarnation from mainstream Christianity was not a theological necessity, it was a strategy of control. Imagine the implications if people believed they had countless lives to grow spiritually, learn from mistakes, and correct their path. Fear of eternal damnation loses its power, and religious authorities lose their monopoly on salvation. Around the 5th and 6th centuries, under Emperor Justinian and the councils he influenced, doctrines teaching the pre-existence of the soul and its return were declared heresy. This shift transformed faith into a tool of obedience, one life, one judgment, one church to dictate the rules. But fragments of the old truth survived in mystical Christianity, the Kabbalah, Sufi traditions, and even in whispers among early monks who refused to forget. The suppression was never about protecting divine truth, it was about consolidating power over human consciousness. Knowing you only have one shot makes you easier to control. Knowing your soul is eternal, returning again and again to learn and expand makes you free. This is why those teachings were buried, and why their return now threatens the old structures built on fear. Despite centuries of suppression, the truth about reincarnation never truly disappeared. It resurfaced through mystics, philosophers, and even modern science. Ancient Gnostic texts, once buried, speak of the soul's journey through multiple lives to reach divine perfection. Tibetan and Hindu traditions preserved detailed maps of reincarnation, while the West was forced to forget. In recent decades, thousands of documented cases of children recalling past lives have challenged the one-life doctrine, many verified through historical accuracy they could never have known otherwise. Hypnosis-based past life regressions have revealed recurring patterns of soul lessons, as if consciousness itself cannot be erased. Yet mainstream institutions and religious authorities still refuse to accept this evidence, fearing what it could mean for their control over beliefs. If people awaken to the truth that life is not a single trial but a continuum of growth, guilt loses its grip, fear loses its chains, and power structures lose their influence. Reincarnation is more than a spiritual belief, it's a threat to systems built on obedience and fear. And this is why even today, truths about the eternal soul remain buried under dogma and denial. If humanity truly embraced reincarnation, everything about our society would change. Education would focus on soul growth, not competition. Justice systems would be about healing and karmic balance, not punishment. Power hierarchies built on fear of damnation would crumble because no single life could define your fate. Imagine a world where leaders understood they would return to the very consequences of their actions, where every injustice they create today becomes the reality they face tomorrow. The suppression of reincarnation was never just about theology. It was about stopping this awakening, preventing a humanity that knows its eternal nature from becoming ungovernable. The return of this ancient knowledge isn't just spiritual, it's revolutionary. It threatens systems that profit from fear, division, and ignorance. This is why the truth was erased centuries ago, and why its re-emergence now terrifies those who depend on control. The question is, are we ready to reclaim this knowledge and live as eternal beings, free from imposed limitations? The forgotten truth of reincarnation could unlock a world where every soul remembers who they truly are, and no power can ever cage a soul that knows its infinity. If reincarnation was once part of the Bible but later erased, what else do you think has been hidden from humanity, and why?